This?
And today we're going to be talking about taking care of your mental health. Now, I kind of wanted to talk about this show or talk about this topic because the new year brings in a lot of new goals, a lot of new resolutions, New Year's resolutions, and people are always trying to improve themselves, whether that's through their physicality, their mental health, both, or other areas of improvement. But I want to put a big emphasis on mental health because, again, a lot of people struggle with mental health, and it's something that we will continue to talk about on this show because mental health really is a big issue, and it could affect a lot of people. So that's what I wanted to share. But before we get into it, I did want to ask you real quick, Santi, what is your favorite snack to get from the movie theater?
Ooh, my favorite snack. I like chips. If they have chips, hot Cheetos.
Oh, hot Cheetos.
Would be
Okay.
my favorite.
Yeah, you really like the hot
Yeah, it's
chips,
just
right?
weird. It's not the best thing that I really like because I feel like it's damaging to my system.
Yeah.
But I really enjoy that. Or I like the uy, ¿cómo se llama? Swedish fish.
Oh, Swedish fish. Oh, yeah, those are
Or
really
the
good.
icy. Oh man, I don't even know.
Icy's.
I should go to the theater.
Yeah, I really like ices too. I just can't do I just can't do ices and popcorn because they just do not mix well in my stomach.
Okay.
And I learned that the hard way. But for me, I definitely like getting popcorn. Usually is a go-to.
My go-to would be popcorn and Takis or Cheetos mixed in together.
Oh, I knew someone who would mix M&Ms with their popcorn.
Oh, interesting.
So they get that sweet and savory. Yeah, the sweet and
okay.
savoriness. I tried it once. It's actually pretty good. But it's probably not something I would do frequently.
There's some really interesting food combinations that I didn't think I would like.
Yeah.
Like ranch on pizza. I found really gross.
But now you like it.
But my brother's girlfriend, she was like, let's try it. She made pizza at home. And I'm like, I doubt I will like it because I don't like ranch. I tried it and I loved it.
Yeah,
and
it's super good.
Yeah, so there's a lot of food combinations that can sound very strange. Sometimes you will like it if you try it, and other times you won't.
And they can be really common in other cultures too. Like other cultures, I feel, put different things on their, let's say pizza, or on the way they season their chicken. Like for pizza example, real quick, is what I always remember seeing is some Latino people putting ketchup on top of their pizza.
Really?
Yeah. I grew up knowing a lot of people who would do that.
I don't think I've seen anyone do. Maybe.
I've tried it. It's actually not bad. But people definitely are pretty grossed out by just putting ketchup on pizza.
Yeah, because there's different combinations too. And in Latin America, candy with spicy candy. That's really strange for a lot of people.
Spicy candy is weird for people. Yeah,
but it's my favorite combo. Yeah,
it's such a sweet combo.
Yeah, so it's
yeah,
I don't know.
Right. Well, thank you for sharing. Now I definitely want to go to the movie theater and watch Godzilla, which I haven't watched yet.
It's really good.
It's really good.
I recommend it. One of my top films for 2023.
Oh yeah, I've heard really good things about it. But
good storyline.
Really? Okay, I'll have to check it out then. But moving on. So when talking about, I want to start by saying taking care of your mental health. What do I mean by that? So, people in the new year, they start seeing change. Every new year, people want change, I feel. Or some people want to make change for themselves. And that could be, again, let's say you're waking up later. You got into the habit of just going to sleep really late and you wake up really feeling bad. Well, how do you break those habits so that they can improve your overall mental health? Because sleep is a very big one for me. Sleeping, it's either I go to sleep at a certain time, or I go to sleep a little later because I have to work on things. What is kind of your sleep schedule like? How do you feel that affects your health and your overall well-being?
That's a great question. I also wanted to add on to what you kind of the intro to the show.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about mental health on the show, and there's a specific reason to why we do and we bring it up, because in a transitional age, like there's a lot of hormonal things that happen in our bodies, like even when you're like, it doesn't end when you're like 25, it just changes, but it's really important because if you don't know how to take care of your mind, there are consequences that can come out of that,
Right.
good or bad. And so that's why we emphasize a lot on that show, and why there's multiple shows that we do on mental health, because we want to make sure that you guys know that during those hard times that you're going through, you're not alone. We feel them too. And everybody does. And there's something that is not very common that we share, that life can be really, really challenging. And knowing that it's life, but there's always going to be ups and downs, and that's how it is. We hope that by sharing that, you guys will be okay with whatever you're going through and find ways to kind of maneuver to get to a better place. With that being said, sleep is a huge part of that. Especially with technology. I mean, we're on our phones sometimes. You're in bed probably at 10 or 9, but you sometimes sleep until midnight or 2 a.m. because you're scrolling on
Instagram or
TikTok,
on YouTube.
Yeah. So for me, I've noticed that sleep has a huge impact on my mind, and I just discovered recently, when I'm so stressed and haven't slept very well, I get a pain from the left side of my head right here all the way over here. But it goes
It's
away.
awful. I know exactly what you're talking about.
It just feels like something is here.
Yeah.
But once you get sleep, or once I get sleep, I feel recovered. So for me, my ideal sleeping schedule would be like be in bed by 10:30, go to sleep.
You know, still talking about sleep, is I saw a recent like tweet, not a tweet, but a thread, an Instagram thread that had like a lot of likes on it. And it was like some guy saying, hey, if you're 25, like by 25, you should go to sleep by 8 p.m. and wake up at 4 a.m. And if you get into that habit, you'll see that like you'll feel more fulfilled. Apparently that was like a big piece of advice, and a lot of people were like disagreeing with him. There's a lot of people agreeing with him. He didn't give a reason as to why going to sleep at 8 p.m. or 4 a.m., but go ahead.
I can assume based on kind of what I've heard and seen, it's that we need a certain time period where we're not interrupted with like by anything, but really get fully recovered. And for example, 8 to 4, if you count the hours, they're getting enough hours to rest, and waking up at 4 in the morning can, in a way, I've done this before. I used to wake up at 5 in the morning.
Yeah.
And what happens is, for me, I've noticed that I have a bit of a more calmer morning because there's not so much noise going around. Everyone's sleeping. So it's smoother for me to wake up. Like I have like a moment for myself. But I've noticed that everybody has different schedules, and sometimes it's the opposite. People sleep really late to get that me time and wake up later.
Yeah.
So I think the idea or the concept of getting rest and getting your workout in is really important, but it might not fit with a 8 a.m.
But everyone's work schedule or responsibilities, whatever responsibilities they have. No, that's a very good point, because people might work. Like, I know a lot of people that are in construction, they wake up really early. And maybe someone who has an afternoon job, they're less likely to really want to go to sleep at 8 p.m. because they know that they're going to have to wake up they can get away with going to sleep later. But overall, I totally get you, though, because I remember when I used to wake up at like 6, I would feel a lot more like even, let's say I didn't sleep the full amount of time I should have, because I've heard that now it's recommended like 7 to 8 hours of sleep is kind of like the recommended time. I always try to at least get 6 hours of sleep, but definitely when I was waking up at 6 or 7, at 7 a.m. Did I say 6 or 7? I don't even remember anymore. But 6 a.m. What I would find is, even if I didn't get enough sleep, like let's say I got less than 6 hours of sleep, but I woke up at 6 in the morning, I I still felt more energized than if I were to go to sleep at, let's say, much later and wake up at 9, but get a full amount of sleep. But I still felt like I was still tired because, like you were saying, at that time of like 6 a.m., 5 a.m., there's movement, but not as much movement as as soon as you wake up at like 9. Because at 9, everyone's already starting to get ready for the day or start already be out during the day. So it makes you feel, I feel like a bit lazier or a bit like less likely to want to get up because it's like, oh, now I got to like face the world now or something, right?
Yeah, and for moms, I've noticed, I had a neighbor who was a nurse, and she would share with me that she slept when her kids slept. And I asked why. And she said because she could wake up a little bit earlier because she could have she didn't work out, but she just got some time to, you're getting tired. She got time to, read, kind of meditate, kind of get into the zone of, I got to get going with my kiddos. So sleep is super important. And when you only here's the thing about sleep too. I've noticed that people are very different. I have family members who can survive and have no problem with sleeping 4 hours. I don't know if this is genetic.
Actually, no. I don't know. I do know people like that. People who can just sleep for like 2 hours or 3 hours and then feel like completely fine.
I'm the opposite. I need to get at least 7 to 8 hours, and I've done it before where I sleep at 2 a.m., 3 a.m. working, and I wake up, I don't know, like 8 or even earlier, and I get
like you fall asleep on your desk.
No, like I'm working at 3 in the morning, and I'm like, it's time to go to bed. But I wake up, early as well. And I didn't sleep 7 hours. I have to make those hours up or else I'm very drowsy. So for me, this is how my schedule works is my schedule from Monday to Friday can be very this, but Saturday and Sunday, I recover those hours.
That's actually really smart. Yeah.
But
that might not work for everybody else.
Yeah. Maybe you do get that amount, but sleep is really important for your mind, and it helps you kind of recover. There's a lot of thinking we do. There's a lot of stress that we have during the day, whether work, sport, or school. We carry all of that. And so sleep, what it does is it recovers your brain to kind of have like a restart and fresh start for the next day. But if you don't get enough sleep, that can actually cause more stress, and you accumulate that all on you, and that can lead to a lot of collapse. And I can give an example with my mom. She used to work. She was just a hardworking lady that she pushed her boundaries where it got to the limit, and it got to a point where her health went down because of stress. So that's why sleep is very important to make sure your mind is getting enough rest.
One thing that I've also found, and thank you for sharing that example, because for me, what I found is that if I don't eat something that night, so let's say that I eat like I'm not hungry. Like, for example, because this happens to me quite a bit, where at around 8 p.m., it's like if I hadn't eaten anything by that time, I just don't eat. And that's a bad idea, because as soon as it turns into like 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. and I'm ready to sleep, I'm just like, I feel so unfulfilled because I didn't eat anything that night. So then I go to sleep feeling awful, and then I wake up with my like stomach growling and my stomach feeling. So I don't recommend, like, again, if even if it's just like a snack or cereal, even just something that you can eat before you sleep. Don't, like, you've heard the saying, don't sleep on an empty stomach. It's true, because when I've slept with no food in my system, it's awful. It's awful. And to me, like, it's a lot. And I don't know if you've ever slept without eating anything at night, and if you felt the same way.
I have not, because I'm very consistent with eating dinner. I'll say this about lunch, though. I often forget to eat lunch, and I do get stomach pains.
Do you eat breakfast?
I eat breakfast, but because I'm designing sometimes or I'm editing a video, I get so concentrated that I don't want interruptions. I can be starving, but I'll continue to work. It's the worst thing to do.
Yeah.
I think Ismael said something last show where he said the gut is the second brain.
That's very true.
And
that is very, very
I was
true.
left with that because I thought about it and I said, that's so true, because whatever we eat, like if you eat a lot of sugar and a lot of fried food,
You feel terrible.
your energy kind of goes down and feel like very fatigued.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that kind of explains your brain is, well, at least that's what I understood. But if you eat like, I don't know, a good meal where it's rich in a lot of nutrients,
Like a balanced meal.
yeah, balanced meal,
yeah.
then you feel a lot more energetic, happy, or not drowsy. So that also really affects your mental health. And it's crucial to always be mindful of avoiding a lot of sugar, avoiding a lot of dyed food. It's really just a balance, because all of that does have an effect on our brains. I didn't know this. For like Red 40, I was reading that
Red 40 dye, right?
Red 40 dye.
It's
does
a common
something-
ingredient in a lot of food. Yeah.
It's very popular, and I just learned that I had a connection with our mind. So just being aware of those things, watching what you're eating, not necessarily to lose weight, or it's more on what type of nutrition you're giving to your body, because whatever you're giving to your body affects your brain.
I agree, because I'm very guilty of being put in a really, really bad mood if I skip lunch, if I skip breakfast. Like if I can't eat anything for lunch, I get really mad. Like I just generally can't function because I get very hangry, as they like to say, hungry, angry. Because it's true. Like if you don't have because food is energy, you get a lot of your food, like calories, they convert into energy. So if you don't have any food, like any nutrients in your body, how are you going to function throughout the day, right? But again, as someone who's struggled a lot with their mental health in the past, like when I was feeling very depressed and stuff, there was a point where like I would just not eat, and it just felt normal. And that to me is really scary, and was really scary when I was at that point, because it's almost like you're saying, the gut is like a second brain, where my brain wasn't great, my gut wasn't like my stomach. I didn't care that I wasn't eating. So both things just kind of like my body kind of was starting to get used to something like that. And that's really unhealthy. And that's something that I want to stress to people. Again, if you're kind of in that mindset of, well, if you're depressed and you're having a tough time eating something, I know it's hard to get the motivation, but it's so important to eat something. It really is. And I even think that there are certain foods that you eat that affect, like you were saying, they affect your mental differently. Like if you eat fried foods or candy or junk food, right? It makes you feel worse. But if you eat like a balanced meal, like a chicken with salad and rice, or something like that, you feel a little bit more positive. But I think that there's more specific foods. Like, is there certain foods that to you make you feel better, like in a positive way, or foods that impact you in a negative way? Like just some examples, if you have any, because I have a few examples myself.
That's a very good question for me. Water. Water is a huge thing. I've noticed that if I don't drink a lot of water, my head hurts. And sometimes I've questioned myself, like, my head hurts. What is it? Am I stressed out? I just start to kind of check the boxes. And then sometimes I'm like, water. How much water did I have today? Sometimes it's just one of these. And but I'm used to drinking a little bit more water. And water, the majority part of our body is made out of water.
Right.
So you're supposed to be.
So you're supposed to be drinking.
Yeah.
I think it's like 120 something ounces.
I think
daily?
it varies based on. I
Your weight?
believe it varies based on like for me,
Weight and height.
Yeah, I mean, my brother drinks a lot more water than I do, but I feel like he's really big. But I take the amount that I'm with. But water just for me is a huge thing where sometimes I can feel that pain and I drink water and it helps me a lot. I avoid sodas. I love coffee, but I don't take it every day.
Mm-hmm.
And water is like my main thing. I was gonna say something about water, but it went off my mind.
One thing for me that's helped a lot, and thanks for sharing, is fruits. I really like fruits. Like I really like apples, especially. Like I don't know, something about eating an apple after, like in the afternoon. Like I really really like eating apples, oranges, pears. Like fruits for me, they leave a positive impact on my body, and I can feel it when I eat them because I'm getting like the natural sugars from, because I do have a sweet tooth. I'll admit I have a sweet tooth. I really like sweet things, but fruits is like the best way, I think, for me personally, to get both a positive and healthy alternative to candy, right? Because you're getting the natural sugars instead of processed sugars that you would find in candy. So I mean that's like one example. And then I like chicken. I think since I'm not vegetarian, so I eat chicken, but for me what I found is that yes, it has a lot of protein and it leaves me feeling full, but I get tired of it. And that's the other thing to keep in mind. It's like if you eat it, it's good to have variety in what you eat. Because I don't know if there's people that can do this where they can just eat the same thing every day. I can't do that. Can you do that?
No, actually, I eat different things every single day.
Because there's people I know that eat the same thing like every day. Or sometimes they stick to the same meal for like a whole week or something. Like I can't do that. I need to have variety in what I eat. And my body, like you said, a lot of what your body wants, what it, like you can tell what your body wants. Like when you're like, let's say you're thinking about what to eat. I feel like like you're saying, my stomach, my second head, it's telling me, hey, maybe we should make this tonight, or maybe we should get this tonight. Even if it's not the healthy option, I have found personally that if I eat what my body wants me to eat, then it also makes me feel good or accomplished, even if it isn't the healthiest option. That's what I've found, and that's what I've come to learn a little bit.
I can give an example on that, actually.
Yeah.
I've had occasions where I crave a soda, like I'll crave a Coke, like insanely, like I want one. And my mom used to tell me all the time, she's like, whatever you crave, think of what type of nutrition that has. And then based on that, you can kind of figure out what your body wants. So if I'm craving a soda, what's the main thing about soda? It's sweet. So for me, it's, I'm probably low on sugar.
Oh,
so then
you're right.
Then I'll pick a fruit. I'm like, I got you. You want something? Or if I'm craving something very like, it just depends. But that's the main one that I got. Like I'm like,
you're right. I think there's a lot of truth to that. Like whatever you're craving is kind of like what your body wants, right? So like you said, that's a super great way of thinking about it. Look, okay, if you want soda, that means you want something sweet. So yeah, you would look for like a fruit, right, to fulfill that. Or let's say that you want something savory, so you're craving something with protein, possibly, like chicken or noodles or pasta, something like that. That's a really good way of doing it.
And just to kind of tie it on in, the reason why like sleep and
eating well
is really important, because mental health, a lot of people assume it's just an illness, which there is like schizophrenia. Yeah. And then there's like bipolar, there's multiple illness that actually have like a diagnosis.
Disorders.
Disorders of mental health. But mental health can also be seen as your emotional, your psychological and social well-being is part of mental health. And a lot of our sleep and what we eat really plays into a factor of that. Yeah. And that's why it's super important to kind of, you do your own, like analyzing what you do with your body and your mind to figure out where you are.
And one thing that I'd also like to mention that we haven't touched on, or I don't think we've really talked about on this show yet either, is hygiene. Like how important hygiene is. So like, even like showering, brushing your teeth, changing into new clothes. I know a lot of people who are depressed who don't shower for a couple days, or don't brush their teeth, or wear the same clothes. Like I'm saying, like it's rough when you're in that state, because you're just kind of like in your you really at that point it's hard for you to kind of change that kind of what is it, that lifestyle, like where you just don't shower or you just don't change your clothes. Like it's hard, and I've seen people go through that, and it's really tough. Seeing them. I personally never did that when I was in my really depressive state. I definitely always wanted to look different, so I would always just put on new clothes. But again, I know it affects some people very, very bad. But again, hygiene's a really important thing, because you want to make sure that you're showering yourself. You want to make sure that you're taking care of your exterior, the exterior of your body as well, because that's just as important. I say as again, taking care of your sleep schedule, your food, what you're eating, all that.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from. And I would also add that for anyone who has a peer or a family member and you see signs of not sleeping, not eating, or
not changing clothes, hygiene,
not showering, I definitely recommend checking up on them and asking them, hey, how you're doing, because depression is a huge part of, especially now, I feel like everyone, doesn't matter the age, there's a lot of people who are in depressed stages, and that can be, there's many factors to it that can cause someone to be depressed. But for you to help someone, looking for those signs are key, to check in on those peers, because people will say, well, I didn't know, but I noticed that they didn't shower, they didn't do this. So those are signs that you can guide yourself and find a way to politely ask to check in on your loved ones.
Absolutely. There, like you said, signs, seeing those signs, because I've seen, again, I've seen my friends, my loved ones, I've seen them go through all these phases where they're not eating, or they're not getting enough sleep, or they text me like at really weird hours, like they text me at like 4 a.m. and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't text back because I was asleep. But just signs like that, like it's just keeping your loved ones close and making sure that they're all right. But I also want to touch on the aspect of social media and how I feel like a lot of people use social media as again, like a gateway to another world where they can kind of just be able to express themselves, which may be not in the best or not the best way of doing it, but it's a very direct thing, because you know that there's people that are following you, and you know that your friends can see what you're doing on there. So it's like you tend to go kind of, if you're in a certain mindset, if you're suffering through a certain mental health disorder, it can lead into really, really awful territory. Like, I have a personal story I'd like to talk about. Is so when I was depressed, I remember I used to on my, not on my main account, but on my private account. So you know how like some people have like private Instagram accounts. On my private Instagram account that I don't have access to anymore, by the way, it got like hacked by like some hacker group or something, because they changed the email and everything on it. So I haven't accessed that private Instagram in a really long time. But I do look back through them, and I just look at them and I'm like, so basically what I would do is this. I would post on there whenever I felt upset, or whenever I felt that no one was listening to me. I would just begin ranting on my private Instagram about, I feel like this, or just start saying like nonsense, like things that just didn't make sense, because it made sense in my head, but looking back at it, it just doesn't make sense in any context other than my head. Because to me, I use it as a way for me to just kind of take whatever thoughts I had in my head and put them, just lay them somewhere so that people can, because I wanted people to understand what I was going through. But I realized that wasn't the the correct way to do that, or that wasn't that the way that I was like ranting, rambling, talking about like all these things about myself that didn't make any sense, like weren't even a coherent sentence. Like how were people supposed to like figure that out? You know what I mean? And I'm glad that I've gotten past that. I've definitely matured a lot, and I've definitely learned and gotten over a lot of my depressive state, because I never want to go back to that type of ranting or that type of posting on social media, because it just reminds me that it was just I felt so lonely, and I felt so like not heard. That was the main thing, was I felt lonely and not heard or loved or anything. Like that's what I was thinking. That's what I was thinking personally while I was putting all those rants, even though I knew that wasn't true. I knew that wasn't true.
What made you feel like you weren't loved or you were not being heard?
Just ignorant, like being ignored by other people. Like let's say I text someone, but they don't get back to me until a day or 2 days later. Okay. That makes me feel awful. That made me feel awful back then.
Okay. Looking back now, what would have you wanted, or would have would have helped you during those times?
For me, definitely what would have helped is just better communication between the people that I was talking to at that time, who I've since then just shut away from my life. And that's something that I feel I should have done much earlier. Because as soon as I shut those people out of my life that were, again, bringing me just toxicity, I felt so much better. I felt so relieved, because they were a big part of why I was feeling so bad about myself. And you know, these people, they're still around. They're still living their life. And I'm still around, and I'm still living my life. And even if I choose to like just leave them behind, and just for me to think, hey, all right, these people were in my life at some point, but now I'm way past that. It took a lot for me to do that while I was in that depressive state. So mainly lack of communication.
Lack of communication on your part or their part?
Their part.
Their part, okay.
Because I felt like, and I was doing a lot of the communication, I just wasn't receiving any of the help, any of the attention that I wanted to get from them. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. What
led you to break away?
What led me to break away was I wanted change. I got to a point where I was like, okay, this is ridiculous. I can't just keep ranting on my private. I can't just keep ignoring other people that are trying. That's the other thing, is that it's because I wanted the attention of these other people so bad that when other people would text me, I would ignore them because they weren't the people that I wanted to hear from. That also happened a lot too. And that to me was a huge mistake that I've now come to understand, that any person, like this is a big point here. Any person who reaches out to you when you didn't reach out to them, keep those people really close to you, because those really are the real people that care about you. They really, really are. Because like, you know, those people are people who recognize, like we were saying, the signs of, okay, you know, he hasn't been eating, or they haven't been showering, or they haven't been sleeping, or they've been going to sleep at wrong time. Like maybe I should check up on them and see how they're doing. Because even though I had ignored those comments, like those texts that I was getting back from these people, at the end for me, what helped was just understanding, okay, I do need these people's support. The real culprits here are the people that weren't I was putting just too much attention to other people.
Okay. And that happens quite often. Acceptance is a just a human thing. We all want being accepted, and not having that approval or acceptance can really take a toll in your mind. Like you'll question, like, am I not good enough? Am I not pretty enough or handsome enough? Am I not tall enough? And all of these questions start to rise up because we seek approval.
Absolutely.
And it's just something that I've seen it many times. So just as a reminder to everyone that you don't need approval from anyone but yourself. That's
absolutely. Yeah, that's the big thing, is like, because that's the other thing. Like I was saying, like I was trying to get the approval of all these other people who clearly just didn't care about me. And why did I, that's when again, that was part of the realization. I was like, why am I just giving these people this much time? I really shouldn't. It just came to me. Luckily, I know it's a lot harder for some other people to realize that. But for me, I just got to my breaking point where I was like, okay, if I continue doing this, I recognized it. I recognized it that, hey, if I continued this cycle of just ranting and just feeling terrible, like I'm just not, I know I'm not going to get far in my life. I'm not going to get far. What also helped for me too, is I was in school during that time anyways. So I was going to the junior college, and again, like learning audio, I started making new friends in college and finding new friends that shared the similar interests that I did. And that really helped me start understanding, okay, you know what? There's people here that I can talk to instead. People that I can physically talk to and not have to, worry about their approval, because it's a fresh start. These are new people. So that's why. So I also think it's very good to make new friends, new acquaintances, meeting new people. It goes a long way.
There's something very powerful with human connection. Human to human. You also brought up like social media, and I've always been very open about my battles with social media, what I think about it, but ultimately I promote it as a tool. It's a tool for you to be able to do something with it, and not the other way around. Don't let social media use you as a tool. You should use social media, as the tool to help you in your businesses or in your hobby or something like that. And keep in mind, when we have like personal social medias, a lot of it is just like 1% of what goes into our lives, right? It's just a snippet of what it is, and not comparing your life with that. And if you know you're struggling with just mentally, you're not feeling well and you're not in the right mindset, I highly recommend to stay off social media, because
I took a personal break from social media for a while,
because watching other people be happy can be very triggering. And what I mean by that is saying,
I totally understand that.
It can lead to, how come they live a happy life and I live a crappy life, But what we often forget is I have struggles. I'm very open about it. You can see my social media. It's very photo artistic wise, because I like to take photos. I want to show what I see with my eyes. But that's not how my life is. My life, it has ups and downs. I have faced a lot of challenges with friendship. I've had to let go of friendship. I've had to face harsh realities, family-wise, work-wise. My life is not perfect. So with that, take that, remember that.
I think that's the big issue with social media right now, is that, like you were saying, don't let social media control you. You are the main one who is in charge of what you're doing and sharing, because I think the main goal of the social media platforms, and what gets really popular and gets the most likes, gets the most reposts, all that crap, is again showing how good looking you are, or how perfect your life looks, or how you get to visit the best places in the world, or you get to again show yourself in a way that isn't really you. You're only showing, like you say, the snippets, the ways in which you are the happy. Like, I'm not saying that it's not okay to share, things like that. It is, but there's a lot of people, I feel, especially with our generation, like the people in their 20s, that just are stressed out so much about their self-image and their confidence because of all the popular reels that they see online of just people, again, showing off their muscular bodies, or girls showing off their bodies. Like, body image is such a big thing and such a big issue, I feel, in our generation right now. of people using Instagram and TikTok, because those are like the type of shorts or in the type of reels that get a lot of views and likes, are those types of reels, like where people show off their confidence or show off their perfect bodies or show off their perfect living lifestyles, you know. And that's unfortunately just, I feel like it's gonna be a continuing trend, because that's what makes Instagram and Facebook and TikTok, all these social media platforms, like really get the likes, the clicks, get people really going.
Yeah, self image, body image is a huge thing that can lead to a lot of depressing states, because one compares. We always compare with others, like, oh, this person has this, I don't have that, why don't I have that, or I wish I had this, or I want to change this. And especially as someone who works in like photography and videography, like there's a lot of editing that sometimes can happen in videos that can make it seem like this is how it is, but it's not. And you always got to remember that. And it's hard because social media can seem so real, but remind yourself, and also remind the people around you that you know, it's not all real. It's sometimes edited and everything. So just work on loving yourself. And I recommend just finding small things that you like about yourself, about your body, about who you are. Ignore what you don't like. Find that one thing that you really, really like and start saying it. And eventually you'll find yourself saying you like other things about yourself. And that way, avoid comparing yourself, even though it is so hard. But do your best to just acknowledge what you like about your body. I also do this exercise for me and for myself, because I read it somewhere.
Yeah.
Where it's so easy for us. I can look at you and I can judge you right away. I can say, for example, I can like, I don't like the hoodie. It's a horrible, I don't like red.
No.
Right? So for example, or I can look at someone and say, I don't like her shoes, or I don't like their makeup. But I read somewhere and it talked about how to be a non-toxic person to yourself. And the best way to do it is when you meet someone, find something you like about them right away. So I'm like, okay.
Instead of thinking of the negative.
Yeah, instead of thinking.
Okay.
So for me, is I meet someone and I'll like, oh, I like your scarf. And sometimes I'll say it out loud. And I'm like, well, I said it out loud. And it just does something to that person to like, oh, thank you. But also for me, it's reminding myself, we're not comparing. Don't compare yourself, but just find something you like about that person. And then naturally, sometimes you will find yourself really finding really interesting things about them. Not in like, I want that, but I'm so happy that happens for you.
Yeah, that I didn't judge this person immediately and I actually got to meet this person.
Yeah.
Because and like you're saying, like personal appearance, like appearance of people, like that's the first thing people will always see, right? Like immediately, people will always see how you look. And I'm guilty of that too, of judging people based on how they dress or how they look without even really talking to them or meeting them first. But there have been many times where I've been surprised and I'm like, wow, I'm so dumb to have thought that this person was this way or this certain way just because of how I initially thought of how they looked or how they perceived themselves, right? So that's a really good point. But I also do want to touch back on, again, how body image is a really big issue as well. Again, when you're feeling depressed or you're feeling not yourself, because I've met a lot of people who are like, you know, like I look at them, I'm like, you look fine. There's like literally like I'm looking at them with my eyes, but to them, their own self-image, they look at themselves and they're like, I look terrible. Like I look too fat, or I look too skinny. And I'm just like, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? Like, you don't look like that at all. But I'm also guilty of doing that a lot too. Well, there's like a lot of times where I look at myself, I'm like, dude, I look way too fat in this. Or I just do not look like how I expected to look in that picture or something like that. I'm guilty of that. And, you know, I've come to realize that like if others see you in a different light, just take that to heart. You know what I mean? Because it's another fresh set of eyes. It's not just your eyes. It's another person's perspective on how you look. And I think it also stems a lot from bullying as well. Because unfortunately, bullying, both even on cyberbullying, bullying in real life, a lot of it, that at an early age, if you get bullied because of your body image or how you sound or how you look, it really affects you long term. Because it affected me for a really long time. Was like my body image, and that's just because of the bullying I was susceptible to at a young age, and I've grown it from it a lot because it has made me stronger as a person, and it has made me realize I shouldn't really care what other people say. And I know it's a little tougher through social media because their strangers can say things to you, and then like, how do you take that? How do you take getting all these mean comments from strangers? You know what I mean? Because you don't actually get to see these people in person or anything like that.
Yeah, that actually happened with well, I'll go back to the body image.
Sure.
I'll share a little bit of what I kind of did for myself to help me not compare with other people on social media. One thing I always said to myself is like, I want to be proud of the people. If they share their body, well, great for them. That's them. But when it comes to me comparing myself, I always say, well, it's okay. Like, there's a lot of great things about me, and always remembering that, and not comparing. And eventually now, like, I don't care. Once you build that mindset and habit, I can see a lot of people coming in and out, but it doesn't affect me anymore. But I worked on it, and it's not easy. So I just look into ways to find yourself where you don't compare yourself on social media, and remind yourself that it's not real, because there's like angles, lighting, makeup, editing.
Yeah, I saw this tutorial the other day of how to make yourself look taller in photos. Like,
yep,
it's all about there's always like an angle, like a certain way of having the camera look, and that goes for a lot. And that's funny because for some of my friends who kind of like take a lot of pictures of themselves, like and like, let's say I'm at like a gathering with them and I see them, and then people are like, oh, I seen you on social media, but you're way smaller than I thought you were. You look way taller in your photos. Or even I get that a lot sometimes. Like, oh, you looked way taller in the photo than I thought. But it's like, it's just again, perspective and angles, and it just goes back to that fact, like, can't really know really a person until you really meet them. I personally say in person or through a connection.
Yeah.
And that's why it was tough for me when we were doing this show remotely for a while during COVID.
Oh yeah, because we met through the remote, right?
Yeah, because that's the other thing is Santi and I didn't meet till like we were talking on shows together, but we didn't really meet or see each other for the first time till months after.
Yeah.
When we can finally get back into the studio.
Yeah, and something else when you brought up social media and body image, sometimes in my case, I'll see women that are very skinny, wearing very little clothes.
Yeah.
And often I'm like, man, it has happened to me. I'm like, man, these girls, like, they probably have a really good life. And sometimes they'll share what they've struggled with. They'll struggle with not eating. They'll struggle with like their personal life has been going downhill. It's another reminder to everyone, like, they can post the most perfect photo of their body, of who they are, but you don't know what they were going through. Doesn't mean that they live a perfect set life. They all have different struggles. And just knowing that, I've come to the conclusion, like, now I say life is beautiful, absolutely, but life is beautiful in the way of it going up and down, up and down, up and down, straight up and down, all of that way. Once I really set my mind on that, it has really helped me. I'm like, a guy can be so muscular, but I know that they could be struggling with something. They might not be showing it, but they could be struggling with something. So for me, that has been a real big thing. And also knowing the truth. If you talk with honesty and authenticity, when you go on social media and people have a backlash on it, as long as you were honest and authentic and you know the truth,
Own up to it.
Own it. And if people don't agree, it's totally fine. We actually did something similar like that. And I actually had an open conversation with Eric about this. Eric Garcia, he posted a reel about me explaining my childhood, where I came from.
Oh, yeah.
And the comments on that video were like, oh, the ignorance of the parents, blah, blah, blah. But they didn't know the full story, right? They didn't know that my background, why my mom actually had me such a young age, the traditions back home, it's so different. So know that people might not know the full story and can come to a conclusion. So don't base your feelings, your whole life around people's comments.
Off of a snapshot, off of a one piece of what someone said.
Don't base it.
No,
yeah,
you can't.
And also even in person, like someone can say something to you, they might not know the full story. And if you know the story and you know how you feel, just be okay. And if in any case, or actually not if, when it happens that you're feeling down, feel it, but also don't stay there. That's the one thing that can lead downer and downer, is staying in that. This is how I feel. That's it. Find ways to release that in good ways. And by good ways, I mean finding a hobby, finding a sport, doing something.
Hobbies are such a big way of improving your mental health, I would say personally, because that's what helped me really improve. Like, again, just going out with friends, trying new things out, like just trying out, like going to new places is great. Like, there's so many ways in which you can create a hobby for yourself. And I know it's not really easy. One complaint I've always heard about here in Marin County specifically is how little there is for teenagers and young adults to even do something here. Because it's so quiet. Everything closes at 6. It's hard to meet new people here because there's just like a lot of older people here, and there's just like no place for young adults or teenagers to really go and hang out. But luckily, more places like that are being made because people are slowly but surely starting to understand that that is an issue. For example, like Karma Club has been doing great. Sally's teenager hangout spot, and that makes me happy. It makes me happy to see that there are some teenagers out there that don't have to go through that struggle that I went through of not having a spot to go to after school or a place to just go meet new people, because I didn't have that. Well, the only way I really had something like that was if I was in theater. Like, theater helped me out in meeting new people. Also, sports were a good way of meeting new people as well. But again, like giving people options, because not everyone wants to do theater. Not everyone wants to do a sport. People have different interests.
Absolutely. And there's an infinite amount of things you can do, like that you won't even see it daily, but there's multiple things that you can be into. Like, for example, I've learned that there's multiple ways of, like the artists that we've had displayed their art here, a lot of them have carved on wood, recycled, different things to create art. There's just so much. And I agree with you. A hobby, sport is a useful tool instead of going to the, alcohol or drugs. That is usually what happens in anyone, just to escape that feeling of escape or forgetting, even if it's for 10 minutes. It leads to drinking, and that can cause a much bigger problem.
And that's the thing we didn't even touch on yet too, was just drug and alcohol abuse and how big of an issue that is, especially in teenagers and young adults. Because again, those are gateway drugs, so they're just there to, like, they numb the pain, they numb whatever you might be feeling, but it's just not a good route to go towards. Like, that should never be the option. But unfortunately, a lot of people go to that option because, well, they have easy access to it, or they can get easy access to it.
It's easier than getting like a therapist.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I mean that's just a whole other can of worms, and it's just, to me, it's again, if you feel that you're abusing a substance a bit too much, then it's probably not a good, healthy thing to continue doing. But I know it's hard. I know it's hard because then now you're facing an addiction and you're facing a mental health issue. And those two are just, unfortunately, it's a very common
combination.
And it's a very hard combination to get kind of figured out.
Yeah, and probably a lot of people as well. I have a lot of cousins and family who are very young that are in that situation. They've gone into trouble with the police and everything here in Marin. And I would recommend normally like go to these resources and find support. But it might not be just how
it might not be the right help or like exactly what the help you need.
Yeah, it might be just finding someone trustworthy that you can go to and explain to them, hey, I'm taking this. But find someone who you can openly and say, I'm doing something, but I don't need a lecture. I need support.
Right.
And that's very different. A lecture, someone telling you, that's wrong. How can you be doing this? But finding someone who can really say, okay, I know what you're doing is wrong, but I am not here to judge you. I'm here to support you. And unfortunately, like I said, therapy is not so accessible.
It's not accessible, and it's also not for everyone. Not everyone wants to go to therapy.
Yeah.
Again, another part of mental health is just trauma.
Yeah.
And there's just and there's a lot of people who just don't want to talk about it. You know what I mean? And as someone who has trauma, I've come to find that it is, at least for me, it has helped to talk to someone about it, because it's just, I have it so built in, like I just sit in silence with it. But I remember, like, again, when I was depressed and all the bullying trauma that I faced, losing my brother, all that type of trauma, it really builds up. And I'm really glad that I personally took the step of just having a therapy. Even just a few therapy sessions just helped me, or at least helped me get back on my feet.
Yeah, therapy works. I have an example of, and thank you for sharing, because I know that's not easy to just say. There's this stigma of like going to it's slowly changing now, but like going to therapy makes you like you went to therapy, but it can be very helpful for a lot of people. I would also say, I've read this somewhere. There's this famous show on Netflix called Made. And it's a series of a story of a mother who went to college, went to community college and then went to college creative writing, and she wrote a book. But her book was based on her trauma. Oh. And I found that's when I say, if you have a trauma, find ways to find an outlet that you can use to let go of that, to heal that process,
right?
Have a healing process. And for her, it was writing. She wrote her story of going through domestic violence with her mother, how she got into a domestic violence relationship, and that she had a daughter. And so her story was sharing all of that, and it became a Netflix series. For other people, it might be music. Finding a way to release music everything is a great you feel. Way. Yeah, it could be photography. It could be, running. There's a lot of people who run, and I talk to them, what led you to running? It's like, hey, I had a lot on my mind, and running allowed me to
let off all that steam.
Yeah, there's multiple
ways. Going to the
ways.
gym, all that stuff, yeah.
I know there's no right or wrong way. There's just better ways that have a more long effect and outcome, rather than, for example, drugs. They're very short and can lead to different outcomes. So definitely suggest finding things that you find that are helpful for you. Like, it might be different for both of us. It might be different for anyone else who is in the room. It can be very, very, very unique. So
and unique to you.
Yeah, just know that whatever your process is, it might not be the same, and it's okay as long as you're improving and you're
making the effort.
Yes,
to improve.
Agreed.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that, Santi. We're unfortunately a minute away from ending the show, but with all that said, I did just want to quickly announce that open mic nights are back, which again could be a good way for you to come out and meet some new people and display a talent that maybe you've been wanting to explore. Again, open mic night is on January 26th here at the Multicultural Center of Marin. And it'll be from 6 to 8 p.m. And I'm really excited to continue doing those because, again, I've personally met a lot of great people that have ended up helping me a lot in my life there. So, yeah, but with that said, just know, again, that you're loved. We're here for you. And thank you for listening to today's show.